just a bloke in a bar.
Welcome to another episode of Bloke in a Bar, brought to you by Grumpy Coffee, the best coffee in all the land. Head to grumpycoffee.com.au. Grab your, we've got two different blends. We've got Very Grumpy, we've got Everyday Grumpy. And listen, turn that frown upside down at grumpycoffee.com.au. Beautiful premium coffee. I'm here with former vice captain of Australian cricket, Brad Haddin. How you going, brother?
Mate, thanks for having me. Been a fan of the show. Enjoy your work on SEM with Cameron Smith. So, yeah, it should be a good couple of hours here.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. It's we just actually, you might, I don't know whether we would have released the news yet or not, but if we haven't, exclusive. Unfortunately, Smithy's not back this year. It breaks me heart, mate. Breaks me heart. The great Smithy. But I'm stoked you listen to it. But first of all, your podcast, mate, Willow Talk.
Yeah, it's going good. It was good this summer. We had some good content throughout the summer with India. We had young Sam take it on Kohli, then take it on Bumrah. Obviously, the audience in India was massive, but yeah, it's been good fun. It's run through Triple M and Peacock and I don't know if we always get it right, but we've got an opinion on what we think should happen.
Yeah, mate. Don't we all? Don't we all? Mate, and what was the kind of catalyst for starting the podcast?
I think just there was no cricket podcast really. You got the grade cricketer and guys like that have got a great take on the game. But I think where we came from with how well Triple M cricket did off the back of that. We had some fun the last couple of years with Triple M cricket, and the audience was asking for a little bit more. And with World Cups coming up, we've had India, we've got the Ashes, which is going to give us a lot of content going next summer. It's just been a bit of fun.
Where do you, in regards to, because we were speaking off air,
yeah,
I'm new to cricket, and I really feel this last probably 3 years, it's just ramped up to a point now where I feel like cricket's almost never been in a better space. Is probably a dramatic, bit too extreme, but at least in the last kind of decade, it's in probably the better spot. Is that accurate? Not accurate? Where is it at the moment, cricket?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting spot actually. From our point of view, we've got a generational team. You just have to look at our fast bowling group with Camo, Stark, Hazelwood, Nathan Lyons just taken 550 wickets, and we never thought this would happen. But he's a genuine chance of passing the king, 708. So, yeah, I think it all comes from a generational team, but also the landscape of the game's changing massive. We've got teams now and competitions in the US, and out of a World Cup cycle, that's the second biggest TV rights, with the expats of Indians and Pakistanis over in the US. The TV rights there are huge, so we've moved there. There's franchise model now. There's not just one model now where, yes, I want to be a baggy green, but there's all the different options with IPLs only getting bigger and bigger. So, but I think the main thing comes from our generational team. We've won everything in front of us. The Ashes really got it going. I think from that Bairstow moment, everyone in the country was waiting for next summer for this to kick off. But, yeah, it's in a healthy spot.
Where do you reckon... look, and I know that this is the age-old argument, comparing generations.
Yeah.
Well, where would you land this current crop?
It's if you look at generational teams that Steve Waugh and the Ponting era, the team went 16 in a row. That to me is obviously the pinnacle. You had Alan Border. I still think's the godfather of Australian cricket. What he did as a leader to get Australia out of the dumps and to where they were, but. I think this team now, we're going to be having an interesting conversation when it's all done. Everything that's been put in front of them, they've won. They won the World Cup recently. They've beaten India at home. They need to get the Ashes. If they get the Ashes, I think it'll be a really interesting time for this group, whether they then start to split apart because they've done everything in the game. But I think we'll be talking about them as a generational team.
Yeah, it's been super interesting to watch since 2015. Just kind of them building in towards this, and it actually hasn't been like a straight path. There's been quite a bit of up and downs. Yeah. What do you reckon about when you say generational team? It's also a new generation of player to a degree, especially Paddy Cummins. He seems like quite a new generation captain. What do you reckon of the style that they kind of play, and also the style in which they kind of carry themselves?
I think that he's a different captain to what we've seen in the past. But I think that's also a reflection on how society's changing and seeing our professional athletes. There's a lot of demand now and opportunities on the cricketers. It doesn't just have to be the baggy green. You've got to be really open to the cricket's changing landscape. You're seeing guys get picked a lot younger. And now in the Australian team, you just have to look at guys like Jake Fraser-McGurk, Cooper Connolly. They're coming in and playing Test cricket now after 3 or 4 first-class games, which you're seeing guys like Mike Hussey, myself. We had 10 years before we got an opportunity. So I think that's to do with a lot to do with franchise cricket as well. We're seeing different people be able to probably prioritise white ball cricket rather than Test cricket, and that opportunity wasn't there 15, 20 years ago. It was just about Test cricket, but I think everything's changing now.
Do you reckon the kind of push towards what you were just, the fact that Test cricket to some isn't as big of a priority has hurt our batting a little bit? That we're too aggressive as batters now, or because our bowling is like top class, almost you can compare it to some of the better but our batting, at least recently, probably hasn't been as strong.
Yeah, I think if you have a look at this group, we've got some players like Steve Smith. I think over a beer at a bar. By the time he ends, he might be our best player we've seen since Bradman.
Yeah, wow.
Statistic-wise, he's doing it in all conditions all over the world. I think our batting depth you're right, in first-class cricket's not as strong as it has been in the past. And there's a number of reasons for that. A lot of guys now are seeing 2020 as a real career path. But I think still that the guys have been successful in 2020 comps have had the ground in of first-class cricket, still have that desire to wear the baggy green. They're still the best players. I know there's a few now. You've got Tim David. I think we'll see Mitch Owen. They'll be franchise players around the world with the style of play that they have. But we're not seeing a lot of that. We're seeing more that still the traditional path where you go through your state cricket, but guys are getting opportunities a lot younger with people probably identifying the talent earlier.
And speaking of guys getting opportunities when they're young, being a wicketkeeper yourself, could you imagine if you were, in the middle of a test against India or whatever, or let's say vice versa, an Indian batter walked out and started ramping on debut as a wicketkeeper? What would you just be going? What's happening here?
Well, I think we would have gave him a friendly reminder where he's playing. And I think what you're talking about is the influence young Sam had on that Test series.
Yeah.
The game's changed. The ramp shot, that wasn't a conversation we had. But now that they've grown up, seeing guys like Glenn Maxwell playing it, they practice it just as much as a forward defence or the hook shot. But I found that extraordinary, that part of the summer, because the Test series, yes, Australia were in front, but we couldn't get through Bumrah. Bumrah had the measure of our top order, and a young kid to be brave enough in his first Test, 90,000 people there, to take the best bowler, and they're talking about this guy going down as one of the greats of the game, to have a game plan to throw him off his game and be brave enough to execute that. I think it's great for the game. Yes, he'll learn, and he's 19, and you don't want to take that fearness away from him. But the way he went after him, it rattled India. Mate, you got Virat Kohli who walked in and shoulder charged him halfway through. Well, all of a sudden, the whole Test series was like everyone was off their chair. Yep. The commentators were standing at the window yelling out. Then you come to the Sydney Test, and you have a traditional Test match, 3 slips a gully, bat pad. They had a deep third man because they were worried about a 19-year-old kid playing a ramp shot. I just think it was great for the game. Yeah, yes, he'll look back at things and think, maybe I can do things differently. But, mate, keep throwing punches, young man. I reckon that was great for the series. Off the back of that, our senior players went unnoticed at the other end. Uzi found some rhythm, but, mate, the fear that it puts in opposition. And I heard Steve Smith quoted afterwards. He's sitting there watching young Sam play, and he said, I'm out. He said, I can't compete with the fearless sort of play these kids have.
Wow. And I hope people, because being a new viewer and just seeing Bumrah, and maybe this is wrong to kind of phrase it this way, but he was bullying us. That's what it felt like. I imagine myself in a league game, in an NRL game, and just the way he was carrying himself, the way the body language of our batters was very internal, and it wasn't open. And And it just takes not only a kid to do it. Let's say Bumrah's form was just pretty good.
Yep.
His form was like arguably the best it's ever been, and to just go and do it was mind blowing to me. Mind blowing.
I think it was mind blowing to everyone because if you have a look at Bumrah, through the whole series, I don't think India were close. I actually don't think they competed with us. The only thing that was different is the way Bumrah played.
Yeah,
we seen it in the first Test match. Both teams, India had a good second innings, but it was all off the back of the way Bumrah bowled. If he wasn't there, it would have been 5-0. But his influence on the series, and for a young kid to come out and have the balls actually to throw something different at a world class bowl, I don't think we give it enough credit. I know after the Test match they said, he's got to change his style, the way he got out in Sydney once he had the game set. That's all true. But you've got to remember he's a 19-year-old kid changing the momentum of a whole series. You got to be brave and you got to have something different about you to do that.
I think also, and this is just purely like statistically, and granted he had that, I think it was 60 in that first innings. Yeah. Like he did actually end up averaging, I think, more than Uzi and Marnus, I'm pretty sure, across the series. And granted, I know they played more games. I get all that. In regards to a guy like Constas, let's say you were his coach right now. It'd be hard to find out, like, what do you focus on? Do you fan the flames? Do you dull the flames a little bit and say, mate, just like, what would you do in regards to Constas?
Well, you're not dulling his flames. The one thing he's done all the way through, and the reason he's playing at 19, he's got hundreds at every level he's played. No matter what age he's played, he went to 5th grade, 3rd, first interstate cricket. And the one thing he's different to everyone else, his appetite to score big runs. And he's already got that in his DNA. The one thing he's got now is, okay, you got a taste of Test cricket. You found things that worked. And now as an opener, we've got to make sure that you still got that hunger to score those big hundreds and don't sell yourself short. What he did in the Test series, he lit it up, but he's a better player than what we've seen in the last Test. So for me, it's about getting back, owning state cricket, and making sure you're winning games. You're winning games and you're being influential in the result of Shield cricket. And I think that's what we're going to see. You've got to remember, he's 19. He's playing at the Gabba this week. He's never played there before. So everything about it at the moment is all learning. But you don't also want to take that that fearless approach out of him. You want him to play like that because that's why he's so different.
Yeah. It's in regards to just purely like if you're related to rugby league, it's similar to some of our fullbacks that are coming through now. They're, they're like taking selfies in the crowd and all, like you probably, 20 years ago, you'd almost get a backhand across the back of the head if you did that. But it is a new, I feel like the positive with the new generation athlete, like there's positive and negatives.
Yeah.
So like back in the day, if you were a rookie, the positive was you were super respectful and you yes sir, no sir, whatever you want sir. But you might be in your shell a little bit and you wouldn't have the courage to do that because you're like, I don't want to disrespect anyone, play above myself. I think the positive with this next generation is they truly, yes, they can be chirpy, and yes, maybe they might get a bit ahead of themselves at times, but when the moment comes, they're usually at least mentally ready for it because they're so confident. They're so confident.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate because you've still got to earn the right to own those moments.
True.
And I reckon from a football point of view, just watching from the outside, I think Maguire will find a balance with some of the superstars of the game. You see Walsh and guys like that who bring a different crowd. They bring a different energy to the game. But the one thing is still remembered on, whether you take your selfies, you get involved, is owning a big moment. And you still got to earn the right, I think, to own that moment. And that hasn't changed when we started sport.
Yep.
You've got to do all the hard yards. Yes, you can have the flashy lifestyle and a different lifestyle to what we've been used to, but you still got to be the guy that everyone wants to play with. You got to want the ball in the big moments or the bat. But the one thing I find with these kids, they're rascals, some of these kids. And I know in your sport and ours, every time you got a big moment, the rascals want the ball.
Yeah.
And David Warner was the same. He got into more trouble. He had more controversy than anything. But what he's a performer when it mattered.
Yeah.
And those guys, they walk into the flame. And we have other guys, and they're all role players in team that they do their role. They build into that moment. They own, but you want your rascals when the game's on the line. And if we can teach this generation about earning the right, getting the right training habits, and then still having that naughtiness to walk into the flame, we've got generational players.
Yeah, it's mate. Even just from a casual perspective, it's super interesting. The state cricket's in Australia. Just quickly, was he 200 runs the other day?
Yeah.
I guess granted, I understand, at that time, Sri Lanka probably not playing the best. However, 200 runs is 200 runs.
Yeah, it is.
I guess, do you think Uzi's probably gets to the Ashes at the end of the year and then probably calls it quits potentially? What do you reckon?
I don't think he'll go past that. It was interesting listening to Uzi's comments after the Indian series. He said he wasn't in bad form. He just couldn't get through Bumrah. and most of the batters was exactly the same. And it wasn't once till young Sam took him on a bit, threw him off his game. Bumrah didn't play in the second innings of the last test. All of a sudden, our batters started to find some rhythm in their game. So you can't say they were out of form. And Uzi's 200, I actually really enjoyed that from a number of levels, because the start of his career, he struggled a bit in the subcontinent. We all have. We all had to find a way to succeed there. And he was left out of a lot of tours because of the way he played spin. So to come out and make a statement like that, and I just think from a personal point of view, that put his mind at ease. There's still a long time to go to the Ashes. They got 4 test matches. And when you get to 38, as much as you want to be looking at the Ashes, you actually sort of just enjoying each moment. And I think since he's come back into the team, that's what he's doing. He's just enjoying the moment he is. And I think if you tap him and say, mate, your time's up, he'll go off kicking his heels, because he never thought he'd get this opportunity. This now, I think, will just reassure that he's still got the game at that level. But I reckon he's just taking it series or test by test at the moment, because you do. Well, once you're 38, you're actually enjoying the moments at the end of the test match, and that's what it's about.
And mate, take us back to a young fella born in Cowra.
Yeah.
Queanbeyan, went to Queanbeyan?
Yeah, went to Queanbeyan.
Mate, first of all, how'd you kind of get into cricket?
I was no different to any kid growing up in the country. He's in the winter months you played your league, and in the summer months you played cricket, and you did that all the way through. I actually don't. I think kids these days choose one sport too early. I think in our sport you see a lot of kids saying, "I'm going to follow cricket. This is a career path. Look at the bright lights of IPL," but you lose a lot of your hand-eye coordination. Your will to compete in different sports. But I was like anyone else. I played my rugby league right up to I debuted for New South Wales. So I played for the Queanbeyan Roos there. I remember one of my last games. Gavin Miller was playing. So we were playing Goulburn, and Gavin Miller was playing. I was a 19-year-old kid, I think.
Local rivalry, Goulburn, Queanbeyan?
Yeah. It was normally the Queanbeyan Roos versus Queanbeyan Blues. But, And I remember he's come back, and I remember he's pulling at my face. I was only a 19-year-old kid, and I sort of moved my elbow to get him off, and he just put a couple on my chin. Well, what am I going to do here? and I remember looking to play the ball, and now 18's hooker had come off, and we sort of jogged off. Thought, geez. And I remember at half-time, my old man walked past me. He goes, "You better go to fucking cricket." He said, "That's not for you." I said, "Yeah, I agree. I'm getting out of here."
That's great.
But yeah, I was no different. I played all sports.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I mean, at age 16, you played first grade for ACT.
Yeah.
I mean, 16, like, I'm trying to think of myself as a 16-year-old. I don't know what was going on. I guess, how did that kind of... You clearly excelled at a young age. Like, did you always kind of feel like, not I'm the best at this, but, I'm standing out in my kind of age group?
Yeah, it was an interesting time, that, actually. When you get noticed in cricket, it's normally at a 17s national carnival and a 19s, and they pick a merit Australian team at 17s, and at 19s you get to pick an Australian squad, and you get to tour, whether it's out. We were lucky enough to go to Pakistan. But I was trialling for the 17s, and our weather wasn't great in Canberra at the time. I was only 15, and I got cut from the squad, and I got cut from the squad without playing a game. And I remember asking for some extra coaching. I said, "Okay, yep. Can I get some extra coaching? It must be on my batting, because you've never seen me wicket keep." And they said, come back into training and you can have a hit and we'll see if we can fit you in. So I was cut from the 17s. Anyway, something happened. One of the guys got chicken pox and I ended up playing 2 of the trial games. And they said, oh, hang on a minute, this kid's okay. I ended up getting, after being cut, I got picked for as a 15-year-old for ACT 17s, went in the national carnival, and I was the one player chosen in the Australian merit team. So it all happened. It was all a bit weird after not getting picked because I was really small.
Yeah, okay.
When I was young, I didn't grow till I was late. And off the back of that, I'd played a couple of years for Queanbeyan in 5th grade, I think from age 12 to 15. And the end of that 17s carnival, ANU came to me and offered me a 1st grade spot. So I'd only ever played 5th grade and 1st grade. I played nothing in between. So that's how it came about. I started as a number 11. Number 11 bat, and as I grew, I eventually got up the order. But it was interesting, my first game actually in 1st grade. We needed 30 to win. I was no higher than the Stumps, and I remember when we needed 30, I couldn't get the ball off the side. I couldn't hit it in front of the wicket. I could use the pace of the ball. I could go with it.
Yep.
And they called me everything under the sun. I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on?
Because you just probably didn't have the strength.
I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't big enough to hit the ball. I had a technique that I could survive.
So you're kind of just using the momentum of the ball to get guided around. Kind of thing.
And I was hard to get out. You thought at that age that you could compete. You had a good technique, and I could stop the ball from hitting me.
Okay, yeah.
And I remember getting called everything under the sun. Guys standing over the top of you, spitting in front of you. I'm thinking, what have I walked into? This is a totally different game.
Yeah.
And I got not out. The other guy at the other end got 30. And I went off and I said, mate, this is a different breed. Yeah. This is a different game. And 2 years later, I'd grown and I'd gone to opening. And this is probably the cockiness in you that you needed. And I remember first ball of a game, hitting a guy over cover, 4 runs. And I said, all right, now let's see if you got a big mouth today. and he looked at me and he's sort of going, and I hit it 4 the next ball. And I had to say to him as well and say, okay, you haven't got much to say. Let's see if the tables can turn. And he went back to his captain. In the defence of the captain of the opposition, he said something. He said, look at this cocky little kid. And he said, I don't think you know what's happening here. And the captain said, what? The bowler said to the captain, what do you mean? He said, it's a little kid you abused 2 years ago. And he goes, what? He goes, mate, that's the little kid you abused. He's called you out now.
Oh, no way.
In front of everyone. Yeah. So it was an interesting time. But I got my own back. As I said, I started, I was so small. I remember playing 1st grade, the balls are going over my head. I just couldn't reach them. We had a big West Indian quick called Kenny McLeod saying to the captain, where'd you get this kid from? But I think that those early days playing with men toughened you up to get you ready for Test cricket.
Yeah. And I can imagine, like, back in that, they would have been open slather pretty much. Say whatever you bloody want.
Yeah, it was.
I'm interested to hear the reasons why you would cut. Was it because someone had a bad opinion, or do you feel like you probably deserved to be cut before that?
I just think I was so small.
Okay.
I was so much smaller than everyone else. And I probably looked a little bit out of place. But I didn't really get the opportunity to play in a game. You have a lot of squad trainings in Canberra.
Oh, okay, yep.
So, yeah, and I was new. No one had probably really seen me play. So, yeah, I think that was it.
Wow.
It wasn't the wrong decision.
Okay.
It wasn't the wrong decision to cut me. Maybe in hindsight for them that you needed to
at least see you put it together.
Play, but I can understand why. Yeah. Because I as I said, I didn't grow till I'd left school.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, my brother actually, he was similar, quite small, and always got told you're just too small. And this is soccer, which is like you can be relatively small. So he was a small. And then similar to you, he last year at school, he just went boom, and he's taller than me now. But I guess it is a really good lesson if there's younger kids listening. Like, you know, your future can change in literally 2 weeks. Yeah, you just hang in there and just keep doing what you're doing, keep working at your game, and you don't know what's going to happen. You really don't. Just takes one bloke or one person or Sheila or whatever to see you. Your whole life can change. Okay, so you go back in that 2 years. What do you reckon? When you started talking smack back to that dude.
Yeah.
Was it a swagger that you'd built up over that 2-year period, or it was just like, I remember what you did to me 2 years ago?
It was that. It was exactly that. And as all kids growing up, I was competitive.
Yeah.
If I was playing table tennis, if you were eating lunch, you wanted to eat first. And I had him from early days. I wanted to win.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was just one of those moments. Whether it's right or wrong, I just kept it there. And I enjoyed the contest as a 15-year-old. I thought, yeah, I've got to earn the right. And my dad said, you're going to have to cop a lot. You'll come out the other side. And when I did, and I thought, oh, you know what, it's time to get a little bit back here.
Yeah.
Open your chest up. Mate, the captain of the opposition, I liked, where he could have easily blown. He said, no, it's how are you going to respond? You took on this kid.
It's almost 15, like all's fair in love and war, mate. Like, come on, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah,
instead of like jumping on his, how dare you, young fella? Yeah. That's great, mate. So it was announced that Australia and Capital Territory would have a team domestic day one day, 97.
Yeah.
And you get selected in the first ever squad. Like, to be, because you've obviously been there for quite a few years now. What would have been from 12 years old? So let's just say 6 or 7 years you'd lived there now. To play for your own kind of state that I'm sure you identify with at that stage, surely there's got to be a great day for you.
Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting story because I lived in Queanbeyan.
Yep.
And Queanbeyan's New South Wales. So all my schooling was New South Wales. So I could play all my school cricket and all my school sport for South Coast. And it actually changed my career when the Canberra Comets came in, actually.
Yep.
A lot of guys at my age are trying to make their mark in first grade in Sydney, in second 11 cricket, and trying to get the opportunity to get a state contract. And so when I was making a decision whether to leave Canberra, and at some stage I had to if I wanted to pursue a first-class career, they've come into the national competition. And for me, straight away, that was a game changer. And I think I was really blessed, especially a lot of other guys my age, when they're trying to fight it out, I was getting exposed straight away. And we were lucky enough to win one game. And I remember the game was against Victoria, and the great Dean Jones was playing, and we were 3 for nothing. I think it was a Bendigo. I was at the non-strikers end, and Dean Jones is walking towards me. And I think, I wonder what the great Dean Jones is going to say. I had his super legend bat. I got his sticker still on my cricket bat. And he looked at me and he goes, "You don't deserve to be on the same field as me." And he turned and walked away. And I remember going, wow. Mate, I had no response. And I was lucky enough that day to get 90. And we beat a star-studded Victorian team. And fast forward to, I think, 2015, I'm playing with Islamabad in the Pakistan League. The first league was in UAE. And Dino was the coach, and having a beer at the bar. I said, "Oh, Dino, do you remember this day?" And we spoke about it. And I thought he'd say, "No, no, I didn't say that." He looked me straight in the eye again, and he said, "Yeah, I would have said that." he did. So it was a good time, Kevin. As I said, I was blessed that it came in at that time. But Mike Valletta coached, and we had Merv Hughes play.
Yeah, wow.
And Merv Hughes, as everyone knows, he's a lovely man, character of the game, mate. And if you need someone to go through a war for you, mate, that man's competing. And they said, "Oh, we're bringing Merv Hughes in. He's going to teach you a bit about what it's to take to be an international cricketer, first-class cricketer, and being the young kid on the rise." I said, "Oh, let's go out and meet Merv." The CEO's brought me out, and we're meeting him in the Kingston Hotel. I said, "Oh, how good's this?" Go out. As I walked in, he's giving me a spiel about this is going to change your career. This is going to, and it did, going to change your career. We can talk to Merv. He's sculling 2 Coronas. And I said to the CEO straight away, "I'm in." He said, no. I said, "Mate, I've just had the speech in the car." Anyway, Merv and I had a great night. We ended up at Mooseheads in
the great Mooseheads.
Everyone's been there. But
oh, man.
Yeah, we had Merv Hughes to educate us on what it was meant to be a first-class cricketer.
Oh, no way. Oh, the great I can't believe the Mooseheads. It's still just...
It's still rocking. He owned it.
No. Oh, how good. How good. I mean, as a young fella, to be able to sit there going, I can't believe, you're surely just going, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot believe I'm on the beers, having a great night. Wow. Anyway, so they lasted a couple of seasons with the ACT Comets or the Canberra Comets. I guess what were those first few seasons like? Was it like, did you learn a lot, or do you think you probably like took it for granted? What were the first couple of seasons like?
No, it was interesting. I ended up playing 2 years, but after the first year, I had quite a good year, and they picked a merit team, the team in the tournament. I was lucky enough to be in that. And I remember sitting down with my family. I thought, now's the time to go. So I had to make a decision whether I gave up playing for Canberra, then moved to Sydney to try to get a first class spot. So we made the decision to move and to miss that last year and make my name in grade. So I came up. I was lucky enough to get put in the New South Wales squad. Then halfway through the Canberra, the one day comp, they made a phone call to New South Wales. Oh, can we pick Brad? We need more players. He's been a local, and they'll let some sort of rule they're allowed to. And I said, no, I'm not interested. And the state selector at the time said to me, he said, oh, well, mate, we're not going to pick you. You might as well go back. I said, okay, if it's all right with you, but I made the decision to be New South Welshman. That part's over. But once they gave me the green light, I said, no worries, I'm off.
Yep.
So we played Victoria again. I got 100, and I think I got a 70 in the next game, come back to New South Wales. And I remember the New South Wales selector at the time said, why can't you do that for us? I said, mate, you haven't fucking picked me. So we're going back to what you said before. Canberra cricket probably shaped my opportunities to play with New South Wales. I spent the first year interested at New South Wales cricket in that year with Phil Emery. He was a great stalwart of the game. And I remember there's another keeper at the time. I walked up to him early, and you talk about how generations have changed. I said, mate, he was going for the spot. He'd been there for 10 years. I said, mate, do you want to catch? He goes, nope. I said, oh, shit. All right, mate, I won't catch with you. So I beelined it straight for Phil Emery. Mate, he had 130 game, captain. And I spent 12 months throwing him balls, hitting him balls, not catching one, and never learnt more.
Really?
Never learnt more about the game.
Wow.
And you talk about earn the right to get your spot. And, mate, he's told me about what it was like to keep at the SCG, where different positions you had to stand. I've never heard of it. We played at Marnico. It was a beautiful wicket. So the education I got in that 12 months was as good as I've ever had in my career. And if someone says, oh, you caught a lot, you hit, I said, no, none of that.
Wow.
I said, I just listened.
Yeah,
I just listened the whole time. Then he retired at the end of that year. And you had the guy that was the obvious replacement, had been there for 10 years. He didn't want to talk to me, didn't want to catch with me. So come the first Shield game, I'm in.
Oh, he would have just been staring daggers at you.
Yeah, he was.
Did you ever bury the hatchet, or you just...
I don't think he really had to bury the hatchet. He was just, back in that era when he started, it was a dog v dog world, some of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of the time, and you don't see it a lot in modern day, but... Mate, yes, you're in a squad together, and once you go across that line, you're together.
Yeah.
But, mate, off the field, it was, mate, I want your spot, and I'm going to do what I can. And that's what he thought his best opportunity was. I hold no grudges. I thought, game on.
I get it.
I'm going after your spot. I'm the young guy. You've been here. You've probably earned the right. But and I think the best move I made was to beeline to Phil Emery and learn about the craft. And as I said, it was interesting. People say, oh, he must have been good. I said, he didn't let me catch a ball. And I had to throw him balls. I had to do everything. But I'll tell you what, it was the best education I've had. Yeah,
it's interesting looking back on when I was coming through reserve grade, so like Queensland Cup, there was Clydesdales at the Broncos, which sort of just won from the first grade side. Similar situation, there was an older guy that was like the gun of Queensland Cup, and I took his spot and he hated me. And at the time... like in soccer, that culture was there, but it was very much more subtle. It was like, it wasn't very in your face. It was like all subtle stuff. Whereas in league, it was just like in your face. He just hated me. It's just like, and I'm just going, what's going on here? I didn't select me, brother. Like, you're the one that played poorly. Like, I'm fucking in.
But I'm after you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you jumping a bit ahead. You won 3 Sheffield Shields, New South Wales. I guess first of all, like as a young fella from moving from obviously ACT, well, technically still New South Wales,
Yeah.
but to win 3,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty incredible. After that third one, did it get any less impactful winning that third one?
Well, I think no, it didn't. But the one I remember most was 2005-6. At that time, the year before, we had Michael Bevan, Slater, War, all retire.
Wow.
And we were tipped probably not to do as well as we've done in previous years. And I remember looking around the room. I was lucky enough to take over as captain. And I remember talking to some of the players. I said, mate, we can't hide behind Tugger. We can't hide behind Junior, Slater, Bevan. We've actually got to own it now. If you've got 400 runs, you've got to turn to an 800 run. We've got to be responsible for changing around. And I think that was the most rewarding. My first ever Shield final I played in, our batting order was, I think, Slater, Kadich, War, Bevan, Clark, Haddin.
Oh, my
So
God.
you sort of take a bit for granted the situation, the era you're in. So,
Far out.
but it
Talking
was-
about strong batting orders, like in a generation of strong batting orders.
Well,
Wow.
that's as good as any test batting you'll get around the world. So that I think they're like grand finals with rugby league. Yes, you get your baggy green, but to build the whole year with a squad and the 2005-6 was the one because we played the whole year. We were all trying to make our mark with Stuart Clark, a Bracken, a Phil Jakes. We were all on the cuffs of wanting to play for Australia, but we couldn't get into that star-studded team with Gilchrist, Hayden, Ponting. So that one meant the most.
Yeah, wow. 1 by 1 wicket?
1 by 1 wicket. Yeah,
I mean,
and that was against Queensland. And we had a bad record at the Gabba.
yeah, okay.
And I remember the game was over. We had Queensland. We needed about 20 to win, or maybe even less, and they needed 6 wickets. And I just got out and went downstairs, and all of a sudden, teammates just kept coming back. I think we lost 5 for 1. And in the end,
No
we needed
way.
9 down. We needed, I don't know, a dozen to run. And McGill and Bracken came out. It was getting dark, and they tried to come off for bad light.
Queensland did?
Well, the umpires, and
Oh,
as
so
captain, I said, nah. I kicked them back. No, we're playing. We're not sitting through this, needing 10 runs tomorrow. And Big Nick, Wade Seacombe dropped the catch. You probably couldn't see it. It was that dark. And then after that, we got the runs. Mate, I was only coming up to the top of the change room to say all the cliches. Oh, we've had a great year. We're a young squad. We've made great strides. I didn't mean any of it, but I just had to say something. But in the end, we had we had a good party for about a week and a half.
Far out. And against Queensland too, would have felt all the better. There was also another one where you beat Queensland by 246 runs.
Yeah.
What do you reckon is more satisfying, a 1-wicket win or a 246?
Oh, against Queensland. But I think the 1 wicket, you wanted to give them a sniff. And they'd bullied us for a long time, Queensland up at the Gabba. You had the likes of Kaspuich, Bickle, Muller, Haydos, Simo, and they were some good, hard cricket. And it was at the time then when we started, Haydos wasn't in the Australian team, and he had a beeline for any kid that came in. And, he competed, he bullied us, he did all that, but he taught us a lot.
Yeah.
So it was good to beat them finally.
I'm sure that the rivalry's there. Is it as strong as in league? Like, do you get the same? For example, from a Queensland perspective, we think you think you're better than us, and chip on our shoulders. Is it the exact same?
Exact same.
It's so good.
When we started, it did. I think at the back end of my career was, we're playing Queensland. Or no, we're playing Queensland, everyone. This is the date.
Yeah.
And I don't think it meant the same. But when we started, it was. You have a lot of. A bit go on in test matches and that, but you never had more in your face sort of cricket and tougher cricket than when Queensland played New South Wales.
Wow.
And you'd see greats of the game like good mates Hayden and War going at it. You had McGrath, and you just think, what have I walked into? You had Marbo chirping at first slip, and you had Simo walking past you and trying to bully you with his height. But mate, it was good. But the one thing that always happened there, and I don't know whether it happens this day. As soon as you'd finish, you'd go straight in their room.
Yeah, okay, wow.
At the end of the game, you go straight in, you'd have a beer and go, you got me there, better than you'd all meet up at City Rollers later for a beer. But it was fierce, but the respect in the change room was always there.
I mean, that's the best way to be, really, you know, like the best of both worlds. You get the fierce competitiveness, but you also get the respect at the end of the day.
You got to earn that.
Oh, 100%. I think it's like people, for example, let's say a player, like for example, here's a good one. Fisher Harris, he's gone to the Warriors.
Yeah.
Do you reckon he's going to go soft on Leota when they see each other, or do you reckon they're going to go hell for leather?
I reckon you'd be disappointed with that personality if they didn't go after
100%. And I think Leota and Fish would feel disrespected if they didn't go. And I think some people maybe outside of sport have been like, what do you mean you're friends? Why would you go that hard? But it's like, what you're trying to say is like, what you think I'm not good enough to take your best. So no, it's so good to hear that. 2008, Kadich, captain, and he won by 258.
Yeah.
So what, 2002 till about 2008, you probably had, New South Wales had the leg up on Queensland?
Yeah, we did. And 2008 was, I think we beat Victoria there.
Yep.
That was actually a funny game. That we were flying that year. We had a home final, and Brett Lee came back for the final. And mate, and Binger was a different beast to anyone.
Yeah.
The pace he bowled, 160. He was vicious. He tried to break your arm. He intimidated. And I remember Binger only bowling about $120. He just sort of rolling his arm over. And we're thinking, gee whiz. And Victoria got into him a bit.
Yeah, wow.
And all of a sudden the game changed. He just said, mate, give me the ball. And Binger ruined it. He just ruined the game. He went after Haywood and Lewis. They were trying to stand up to him. And I remember him hitting Haywood in the ribs, and he's going at him. He didn't come out and bowl. And in the second innings, they had a little leg spinner come out. You know, leg spinners, frail. Mate, no one talks to him. He walked out, and Bryce McGain and Binger had beeline for him, and he thought it was Haywood. And he took his helmet off. He said, it's not, it's me, it's Bryce, it's Bryce. I didn't say a word to you. But Binger went through and tried to knock his head off. But yeah, we had a star-studded team there. And Binger changed the game just with sheer pace. Phil Hughes in that game sort of announced himself as well. I think he might have got 100 in the second innings, and then everyone then realised, mate, what a talent we've got there.
Yeah, wow. It's guys like Binger, like they're just being gifted with such talent. It's so frustrating sometimes because you're like, it's so annoying that you can just go like that.
Yeah.
It's like almost like a Greg Inglis of the NRL or a Trell Mitchell where they just go, boom, yep. Not only am I gonna play well, I'm gonna dictate what happens here.
It was an interesting one where when he got picked to play for Australia, we're playing at the Wacker. So the Wacker were at full strength, we were at full strength, and we'd seen a little bit of him in the first couple of Shield games, and we'd never seen anything with that pace. And all the big boys come back, and I took my position keeping, and Mark actually said, he goes, mate, I don't stand this far back from anyone. We said, Junior, you stand where you want. Mate, this is different. He goes, and Junior flipping it off. 2 balls in, Stephen just turned to everyone and said he's in the next test team.
Wow.
The pace was so different to anything else. And I remember he hit Joe Angel in the arm guard. He hit the arm guard. So the arm guard did his job, and we all sort of ran in. We're going to give Joe a piece of and his arm's just flopping.
Oh, no.
And we sort of looked. So the arm guard was meant to do its job, hit it right in the middle, but it broke both bones in his arm. So I'd never to this day seen anything that fast. Like you play fast bowling, you see Shoaib Akhtar, you've seen Sean Tate. This was the only day you sat back and went, I don't know how I'd play this.
Yeah.
He was, and the story speaks for itself then. He got picked for the test team, got fired from debut against India at Boxing Day, but I've never ever seen a ball bowled that way.
Yeah, wow. Just it's as a casual fan of cricket, it's the one part of cricket that from a casual perspective doesn't get enough credit of like, you know, you can watch rugby league and it's very obvious what's happening there. Like the collision, oh my God, that's scary. Imagine, but like a ball coming at you 150, 100, like that is, and then I'm assuming if you want to give yourself a chance, you've got to be brave and stand in front of it. Yeah. Otherwise, if you start, it's almost like a tackle. If Tamalolo's running at you, if you step aside, you're going to give him a chance to go through. Yeah. Oh man, I can't imagine that hitting your arm like that. Oh, mate. So you made your one-day international debut against Zimbabwe. Yeah. Was it 2002?
Yep.
I guess. Yeah. Walk us through how that all come together.
I was only young. I think I was 21, 22, and so I made my debut, 21, 22, but I didn't debut for the test team to 8 years later. So I remember getting the phone call, and it was interesting because I got the phone call, got to get to Tassie, and I got to Tassie late, didn't see anyone, had a note under my door, the bus leaves at 8:30 the next day, they were mid-series, and then I was lucky enough to obviously get the game. It was what I remember about the game is you had Andy Flower. He was ranked number 1 bat in the world for Zimbabwe, and I remember Ponting and everyone just giving it to him the whole time, and it was just, wow, this is a different level. And I got the opportunity. My first dismissal was a stumping off Shane Warne.
Yeah, wow.
So that was good. The first time I had the opportunity to keep to him. But what I noticed when I got there was the aura around the team, and I thought, this is different. This is a different feel. These guys know exactly what they have to do to win. And once they cross that line, you thought, well, this is a different feeling, and it's sort of a bit like a drug, where you go, I want more of this. It's addictive. And probably from that moment then you sort of go, okay, I've got to up my standards to be part of this more.
Yeah, and like, look, not to compare to the Australian cricket team, but early 2000s at the Broncos, you can't explain the intangible feeling you get, but it's almost like you're just around a bunch of ruthless winners. And they don't say it. Yeah. There's just an expectation. You either get on or you fucking beat it.
And these are the standards.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, like, I was a fringy, so I wasn't part of the main kind of people that are pushing that. But it is this intent. Like, if you have to say it, then it's obviously not there, kind of thing. That's the kind of the way it felt. Like, if I have to actually verbalize this standard, then clearly it doesn't fucking exist. Yeah. You should just get on board. And I'm assuming the test team you're walking into, or the team that you're walking into there, that's probably the feeling kind of that you did, just going, oh shit. So Shane Warne, did you say your first stumping?
First stumping first dismissal was off Warne. Just I think Alistair Campbell just one drifted, sort of popped a little bit, got it, went upstairs. It was, you had to pinch yourself pretty quick that, mate, you've got a job to do. When you're sitting there and you got Ponting at short leg and keeping a Warne, it was good.
The best seat in the house
he was just different to all of us. Everyone says what was so great about Warne is the way he competed. He was just better than all of us. He knew it. His cricket brain and IQ was high class. And it was good fun. It was good fun. I didn't play a lot during that period, and I didn't think I'd actually ever get the opportunity to play Test cricket after that, because Gilly was there. But it's something I wanted more of after I walked into that change room that morning.
Yeah, I'm assuming, and maybe I'm wrong, but before you get that debut, you think you just won. You get the debut and you're like, I can't go anywhere else. I have to stay here. So you waited a very long time between ODI debut and Test debut. And you're behind Gilchrist for quite some time. I guess, to put in rugby league terms, it's similar, I'd assume, to like a Cam Smith in 9 to a degree. And maybe in any other era, you're probably getting more of a go. How do you kind of keep that motivation up to go, I'll get a crack? I just need to keep putting myself in the right spot.
It was interesting because I remember being called on a test tour of India, the famous test at Calcutta, where Australia enforced to follow on, and Jarvid and Laxman put on that big partnership. And I remember sitting there carrying the drinks. I was on standby if Gilly didn't come up with the quad injury, and I remember the feeling India had that they're on top of the game, and I remember the crowd, the energy, and I just think, fuck, I'm not ready for this. I'm actually not ready for this standard.
Yeah, wow.
And then I went back after that series and said, listen, this is a standard I've got to train at. This is what I need to get to. And it was interesting. I had to spend some time thinking about it. I had to take Gilly out of the equation. And what I had to do is make sure I could be the best player I possibly could be. And I know that sounds cliche, but I didn't actually think I'd ever get the opportunity to play Test cricket. And if I spent my focus trying to, I've got to play Test cricket, I reckon it would have ruined my career.
Yeah, okay.
And I had to concentrate on saying, you know what, I'm content to be as good as I possibly can every day, play for New South Wales, and if the opportunity does arise, I need to make sure my numbers, there's no second choice, that I'm the obvious second. I'm not in competition with third and fourth, and that's why I try to get myself in a position. And I remember when Gilly retired, and shows a bit of the class of the man as well, he rings me, and he said, your life's about to change. I'm about to retire.
Oh, no way.
And anyway, the next day he retires, and he was right. Your life changes. But I was never obsessed with what he was doing. If I was worried about what he was doing and trying to get that spot, yes, I was trying to push as hard as I could. I'd have been sitting in the corner rocking backwards and forwards because he changed the way keepers were perceived, the way he batted, the way he could change momentums of the games, 100, and the presence he had on every form of the game. So, yeah, I took him out of it and made sure I was doing everything I could to make New South Wales great and win. If you're winning, I think it's easier to get picked in higher teams. And make sure my performance, there was no one challenging me to be the second or third.
You could really apply that lesson to so many things in life. Just don't, let's just, apply it to the podcasting game.
Yeah.
You can sit there and, that podcast is getting all these views and this social media page is killing it. You drive yourself insane.
Yeah.
There's peaks and troughs, and who knows, maybe they'll always be bigger than you. But they also might not. But I tell you what, it's not going to help is you sitting there worrying about it constantly. And it is a really interesting lesson that, if you were so focused in on all the great things he did, you'd almost be telling yourself that, it's almost every time he did something great, you'd be reaffirming in your head that you're not there kind of thing, rather than just going, whatever he does, that's awesome, great, love it, I love Australia, but I need to be best. Essentially, what is it? Luck is when preparation meets, whatever it is. That's really what it is, though.
Yeah, well, I'll probably work that out, and you took really early in my career. We'd talk about when I started New South Wales and went to catch with the second keeper, and he said no and went to Emery. I was always the one through my career. If I was in competition with someone after my spot, I wouldn't isolate myself from them. I'd say, no, come and have a catch. Let's have a catch. Let's talk the craft. And I'd give everything I knew up. Say, yep, this is why I do it. This is what works for me. Have a look at this. I would never hide anything. And if they were good enough to knock me off, well, so be it. But you had that inner thing in your guts. If I do everything I can, you know you want to compete on every play. You work as hard as you can, doing the right to be the best you can. I actually wasn't that worried if I didn't make it. I wanted to make it. You wanted to play Test cricket, but you also had to be a realist.
And I guess also, if you've done everything you can, then you're focusing on the stuff you can't control. It's just pointless. It's really pointless. However, you obviously do get that opportunity. I think it's good to not think about, obviously, him constantly or what he's achieving, whatever. However, filling his shoes, though, that's almost a different beast, because then you kind of almost, you could fall into the trap of going, I need to be that next guy for Australia. How did you handle that mental side of it?
Well, when I got my first Test match, as I said, it was obviously excited. It was the other end of the world. We had to go to Kingston, Jamaica. I thought I was ready. I was ready to go. I'd done everything I possibly could. So it was interesting in my Test debut. I got my cap presented by Ricky Ponting. I waited, had 8 years since a one-day to Test debut. Mitchell Johnson's bowling, sprayed one down leg side. I broke my finger. I could feel it straight away. Straight away I could feel it. And at that time, you didn't have a second keeper on tour, and Huss would have taken the gloves if anything had happened. And you know where you get a knock on your finger or you know, nah, I've broken it. So I remember just slowly walking across the Huss, and I said, mate, this is my first Test. I'm thinking, senior player, Huss, I said, mate, I've just broke my finger. He goes, I don't give a shit, I'm not keeping. And I went. And I turned, went back. I played the rest of the series. And it was a comical event, the rest of the series, and kept through. Played that first Test, and I went to get someone to have a look at it in the second Test match, and It was a different era. Like, you didn't have doctors on tour. The physio did everything. And our physio fell ill. Anyway, he fell ill. He was away, and they sent me off to some doctor. And I'm sitting in the Caribbean looking over, and he's going, "Oh, that's no good." And I've got my hand on the desk. He goes, "I'll just play with his nail," and he flicked my nail off, dickhead, with some scissors.
What?
And I'm just sitting there and watching it, thinking, "This is not good." And as he's done it, my fingers dropped. He goes, "Oh, sorry, you've got a broken finger. I thought it was just infected. I was getting the nail off." So I didn't have that protection. So I had to play the next 2 test matches in my first series with no nail. My finger was broken. But it was great humour to guys like Roy Simons. I remember having to get a needle in the last test, and they're blocking your finger. And he's in there with the camera. You know, our teammates are. They're really sympathetic.
Yeah, heaps sympathetic. Yeah, heaps.
So, but I got through that test series, and it was a good time in the West Indies. I remember my family made the way over, and I can remember my brothers actually. They were sitting in the grandstand right behind the groundsman's thing behind them. Mate, and they were sitting there having the time of their life, mate. They were eating 2 packets of Doritos every 35 minutes. I'm thinking, mate, they are smoking something that's coming out of that greenkeepers. But it was a good tour. It was, but it's not meant to be easy, but good fun.
Far out. Do you reckon he said it initially to just get you in the mindset of like, don't give yourself the option that you can't play, or do you reckon he was just like, I just don't give a fuck.
I reckon Huss just said, I'm not keeping. West Indies can be a tough place to keep.
Yep.
But it wasn't like I was never giving it up. You'd waited that long to get the opportunity, but like you waited that long, and you know whether you made you debut, you're up and about, you bounce, and you think you can dive for things that you can't get to. And I've dived and hit it, and I just went, oh no.
Far out.
Sport.
Oh, that is so good. So in your 9th test and 2nd test in Australia, you get your first test century.
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
I tell you what, it was actually a bit of a relief to get it, because it had been 9 tests, and in the modern time now you think, that's great for a wicketkeeper to get 100 in the 9th test, but it was probably the only time in my career that I think, I actually need to get a big score. I come off a lot of runs in state cricket, and it was more once I got the 100, it was just relief.
Yeah.
Because I'd probably started to think about the first time in my career getting a big score. I've got to get a big score. I've got to get 100. I've got to get 100, rather than going through what worked for you. And a wicketkeeper's role wasn't, if you go back to Hughes, Marshy, and so we got runs when the team was under pressure. Then if you look at Gilly, he was just changed the game from everyone. He was just an out-and-out superstar. He was different to all of us, but he was the exception to the rule. Yeah. We were just mere mortals playing our role, but it was a relief when I finally got it.
Also, in regards to the age of making, 30 years old, at any stage did you think it passed you by?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. My gut feel is if Gilly had gone for 18 months longer, 2 years, I'd never played. And you could understand that too with where your age was, and your keeper's a long-term position.
Yeah.
You once you're in, you're a 5-10 year player. So I think what had helped me though to be able to debut late, professionalism in sport had changed. You know, when you used to get to 30 and you go, oh yeah, you're too old, bring a young kid in. Yeah. But now, like I debuted at 30, I had a couple of years off, but in that time too. But I played 60-odd test matches, so you're happy with that career. So I think with all the professionalism that come in sport, it came in at exactly the right time for me to prolong my career. So I was very, very lucky. But as I said, if you had gone 2 more years, I could understand why I would have been overlooked.
Yeah, wow. It is funny. You look back at some of the greats, late 90s, early 2000s, and you go, how many of them, if they just had the right mindset around turning 30, could have just kept playing for another 4 or 5 years? Yeah, because it was just almost a stigma. Hit 30, and it's like it's over. And yet it's not like bodies have changed that much in the last 10 years. It's just been maybe science has just said, oh, well, if you do this, all these extra things, you'll be able to prolong your career. You hit 169 against New Zealand, Adelaide Oval, and get man of the match. Was this your first man of the match for Australia as well?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
what was that like?
That was good. And to do it against the Kiwis was special as well. As I said, there's a bit of pressure on myself that you wanted to feel like you belonged. And you obviously had your gloves and that was your craft, but you needed that big score to say, okay, now I belong at this level. And it's not said out in the open. It's not said to the media. It's more of a feel thing in yourself that I now belong in this group.
Yeah.
And is that feeling right or wrong? And I think we all have it. And probably from inside the group, they're not thinking that at all. But from a personal point of view, when you come into a team, especially the Australian cricket team, you want to feel like you belong. And how I thought that was with performance. Yeah. And once you got that, it's just sort of relaxed you a bit and allowed you then to say, okay, I do belong at this level, and now you can relax and get back into your game.
Yeah, it's a man of the match because like when you're really good at like say the local level or state level, and you get into that Australian side, I think a lot of people would look at it and go, well, why are you pushing so hard for that man of the match? And it's like, well, you're so used to being the best of where you're from that you almost feel like a little bit of a failure long term if you don't at least some games play the best on the field. So, yeah, I think unless you're actually in a sporting environment, it's very hard to understand that kind of mindset. But you work behind the stumps. You've been obviously known for some great catches, but there's one that stands out, or at least one that we feel stands out. Yeah. You take a full stretch down the leg side of someone but.
Oh, that's an interesting test match.
Would you walk us through that?
I don't know if I can walk you through that test match. That was strange, that test match. Okay. It was... we were a long way behind in the game. And I think Huss and Sid's put on 100 or something for the last wicket. And it was a bizarre event. They were dropping catches everywhere. We found some way to get in front of the game. And then we knew if we could get 150 or 140 in front, Pakistan are always a big chance to crumble under the pressure, and that's what it was. And those catches, you take a lot of catches in your career might be more dynamic, but you remember the ones that mean something in a result. Yeah, and that was one of those. And I remember just hearing it, and as I caught it and did the roll, behind me was Jabba's Hill, like Bay 13 at Melbourne. It was at the cricket ground, and you could just hear everyone go. Oh yeah. And they're little moments that you remember. And I remember when it hit right in the middle. You rolled. I think punter came running to me. Jono come flying down. But what I remember is the roar of Jabba's Hill.
Yeah, far out. Yeah. It truly is like you almost take yourself back to being a little kid in those moments, because that's like truly when you're a kid with all your hopes and dreams, naive as anything. Everything's saying that you probably won't make it and you're not even going to get close to making it. Yeah. And then you actually get to experience that moment of just a crowd erupting. Mate, you're also known as a bit chirpy behind the wickets.
Gamesmanship.
Okay, apologies. Very gamey behind the stumps. Has Stump Mike ended the chatty wicketkeeper, you think?
It's a good question, and I would say yes, till you get in the heat of battle. Then you forget about it. And I remember a couple of times. I remember one time I got caught on it, and we're playing a Boxing Day test, and Virat Kohli had dominated us in the previous test matches.
Should have just shoulder charged him.
I tried. I was getting to that point. And at lunch, we couldn't get him out. And I remember sitting in, having a quick meeting, and Darren Lee was talking. I said, I think we've got to get him to play on emotion and not skill. He's got in this bubble. And I said, we've got to get him out of it. I said, I think we need to go at him and see if we can get a reaction out of him. And if we get a reaction, everyone go, because he'll try to bully us. And anyway, we did it. We called him a sport little brat. We went after him with everything. Anyway, it worked. He got outside his bubble, and he's gone a massive big cover drive, big nick. and because he's trying to dominate, he's
Yeah.
trying to push back.
Yeah.
Dropped at second slip.
Oh.
And then we went, no. He looked at us, and in that split second, I reckon he knew what we're doing.
Yeah.
He went back in his bubble. He got 150 or 60. I caught him right at the last bit of play. But I got caught on a stump mic, and I got home, and my two boys were playing out the back. My older one got out or something, and I could hear my younger one go, "You're a spoilt little brat." And I'm thinking, and my wife looked at me. I said, "Oh, what are these two up to?" And she goes, "They heard you on the stump." So,
Oh God.
there's been some good ones. There's been some planned sledging.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll let you be the judge of this one. I remember Jonathan Trott. We could not get him out.
Yeah.
Could not get Jonathan Trott. He averaged 90 against us in about 3 ashes. And you're always trying to find little ways to get a reaction out of the opposition. Some you don't say anything to, like Brian Lara, Kevin Peterson. You do not touch the bull. Just let them go and don't let them get in the contest. But we couldn't get Trott. And I remember, when you grow up, you learn to mark centre and you just mark it one little mark. He marked it a metre. He did it about 4 times. Then he moved to the left and he played with his pads and played with his glove. Then he moved up halfway to beat the other guy. So and I'm watching him. So, and as all professional athletes, when high performance staff come in, nutritionists, psych comes in. So I said, I'm going to use this psych. So I ring the our psych, and I said, "Oh, mate, can I have a chat with you?" And he goes, "Oh, God, had you right?" I said, "Nah, I need to have a chat." So I said, "Come to the bar, we're having a beer." And I said, "Oh, what's it mean to be on the spectrum to something?"
Yeah.
And he looks at me and goes, "Mate, you're not on the spectrum." He said, "You might have OCD, your keepers are all the same." I said, "Oh, no, it's not for me." I said, "I've just witnessed this." He goes, "Oh, yeah, that's routine." He explained. I said, "Oh, what happens if I broke that routine?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, would that cause a reaction? So I started putting chewing gum in the line. So I'd put chewing gum in the line, and he'd come to stand at the left, and I'd be standing there. And he's going, "Move." I'm saying, "No, I'm setting the field." And then he had to rush to get to halfway, so his mate didn't get over because that was part of his routine.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, it threw him. What it did do, we started to hit him a lot because we threw everything out. Then that was in the 2012 Ashes over there, and we had to return Ashes. So we had the one-day series just before. We did the same thing, went after him with the bumpers. We hit him a lot. Come the first test, we'd planted with a few of the media that said we're going to bounce Trott. We're going to go after him. So we're using everything we can.
Yeah.
Putting the rocks in. Anyway, we got him early, hit him a couple of times, caught deep fine leg. He's gone off. He's retired at the end of the game. He just was mentally gone. So I don't know if that was a good part of the game.
God.
Yeah, it was.
That's amazing.
We didn't say anything.
Just got in his routine.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Far out. And look, even as a person that I'm pretty casual.
Yeah.
If I had a kicking routine or something that got disturbed, it does take you out of the moment. Yeah. That is great.
I don't know whether you call that gamesmanship or sledge. We had another one with Ben Stokes in that same series. So he hadn't played Test cricket yet, but we got a bit of an idea he's going to debut in the second Test in Adelaide. We'd won the first Test. That's where Jono was bowling like the wind. It was scary. And we got a bit of an idea that he's about to debut because Trott had obviously gone home. And our assistant coach had worked at Durham. He said, "Oh, mate, he's a good cricketer, but he can get a bit emotional." He said, "Oh, if you find an in, go." He thinks he can blow the game up.
Yeah.
So, mate, the Test match is just panning on. I'm on 50. He's coming to bowl. He's nicked me off. Walked off. As I got halfway off, the crowd started cheering. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, that's us. That's for us. I looked up on the big screen, he's bowled a no ball. So I started to walk back and I thought, hang on a minute. This is the moment. So, and you can decide whether it's sledging. I walked past him and said, congratulations on your first test wicket. And anyway, it's just gone woof, blown up. Next ball, he's bumped me, walked into the middle. And in the middle of the wicket, that they're going to an ad break or something. So I'm trying to get his attention. And I'm saying, congratulations on your first test wicket. I'm turning my back. Michael Clark says, well, mate, we're laughing. I'm saying, is he still there? He goes, yeah, mate, he's going. And anyway, a bit happened at the non-strikers end, and he's blowing up. And I said to the umpire, I said, mate, this kid's not respecting the game. Mate, first test match, like, what's going on?
Not respecting the game.
Anyway, he got a bit of a talking to, and I was helping the situation when no one was watching, saying congratulations. And the moral of the story is he got fined a percentage of his match fee and I got nothing. So I don't know if it's sledging or gamesmanship. You can be the
gold.
judge.
That is gold. I love the idea of like test cricketers sitting there going before a game, how can we get in someone's head by just needling? So like, that's gold.
It works the other way though. I remember before 2007 World Cup, we did a tour to Malaysia and it was a tri-series, Australia, India and the West Indies. And we had a big squad. So you're over there sort of doing a camp to get right who they want to take to the 2007 World Cup. And we're playing the West Indies. And we've got some young blokes like myself over there. We've got other young guys just sort of working it out. We had an off-spinner, Dan Cullen. Didn't play much, and you'll understand why. So punter said, do not get Lara engaged in a game like this. Leave him alone, because if we get him engaged, he'll ruin it.
Yeah.
Said, yeah, mate, punter speaks, we shut up.
Yeah.
We're staying out of it. So Dan Cullen's come on the bowl. Lara's sort of come down and sort of half kicked it away, half hit it like he wasn't interested. And Dan Cullen's picked the ball up and pretended to throw at him and said something to him. Lara's looked at me and I thought, here's one of those moments. What do? Look at my shoes. and I just looked straight at my shoes. I said, I'm not engaging you.
Yep.
He said, now he's a fucked.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, don't look. Anyway, he got 120. West Indies beat us. He ruined the game. They got him engaged. And the next ball, he ran down the wicket to the Dan. He bowled a beautiful arm ball. Beat him all ends up. He looked at him and just tapped it straight past me, 4 runs, and went whack, whack. And he was that good. We'd just given him a reason to play.
Yeah.
And he ruined the game.
No way. And so with Lara, it was just pure, like constantly told each other, boys, just don't even give him an inch. Almost make it dead silent so he doesn't want to be there. Far out. That's just such an interesting, like you'd think, if you sledge, you'll sledge all the time, but certain people you don't want to engage in the game. It's almost like, you compare it to league or whatever, like you don't want Greg Inglis engaged in the game. Like, you don't want some of the, like Sonny Bill or something like that raging through the middle, or Gordon Tallis. Like you just want them just to chill. That's so interesting. I love the fact that you used a sports psych, not to help a bloke, but to get in his routine.
Well, it was interesting because, all modern day sports, say they change a rule.
Yeah. And
as coaches or players, you don't go, that's a good rule change. The first thing you think about is how can I manipulate it for us?
Absolutely.
And it happens in every sport. Like, we're going to change this. We're going to, I don't know, in rugby league, you're going to speed up the rugby. First and foremost, you're going to try to find a way to slow it down.
Yeah,
you're not thinking, thanks umpire, thanks for the feedback. Yeah.
Great rule, that one.
Great rule. So I thought a sports psych, he was there to talk. I thought, you know what? I'm going to use him to our
advantage. We'll leave it to the audience whether that's a sledge or not. Mate, you got a chance to captain Australia on 2 occasions. In Ricky Ponting's and Clark's absence.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like having come into the side relatively late, what an honour, captain your country, far out.
Yeah, there's probably a different way to look at that.
Okay.
Is test match, it was about 10 years. Yeah, I'm not sure the date. It was the game after Phil Hughes passed, actually.
Okay.
Michael Clark was captain, and he did his hemi in the last session, so I had to take over the last session. The game was gone. Thought I was going to piddle out in a draw. Found a way to get 7 wickets, and we won the test match. And Clark was out of the next test, so at the end of that, we all had a drink, players, past players, and it was a pretty emotional time for the game. And
sure.
Mark Taylor was on the board at the time, and I sitting having a beer with him. He said, "Oh, you'll be captain." I said, "Oh," and I don't know whether this is the smartest decision I've ever made. I said, "Oh, mate, I'm not the right man for the job." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Oh, I'm coming to the end. I'm nearly done." I said, "Someone like Steve Smith, I was vice captain, but he's obviously the next one to come through." I said, "I think it might be better to go to someone like him and have some of our senior players around him." He said, "You sure?" I said, "Well, I'm not a long-term deal. Then might be a good opportunity." So I got the opportunity to captain the cup in the 2020s, but yeah, I gave up the opportunity to ever captain the Test match. I still, it was the right thing to do for Australia.
So so it's purely from a perspective of this isn't what's best for the team in your opinion.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. I was like a short-term decision. Steve Smith was going to be the long-term captain. There was a bunch of us, obviously, you're thinking of going to retire at the same time, but why not give him some experience when you had some senior players around? And
makes sense. It makes sense.
I don't regret the decision. Would you like to have been the opportunity to captain Test match? Yeah, that would have been nice, but it doesn't define me as a player or a person. I can live with the decision. I've never really thought twice about it, but I had a couple of 2020s, but never a Test match.
Yeah. And just speaking on the Hughes situation, well, not situation, terrible passing, I guess, like, what was that period like, but also, like, if there was something to leave the audience, an essence of what Hughes was like as a bloke, what was he like as a bloke?
Mate, he was a great character, Hughesy. Mate, he'd be batting with guys in the middle of a Test match. You'd have Morno Morkel or Stain around his head, and you go, "Mate, how good's this? And by the way, I've just brought 10 more Angus beef. They're going onto the farm." You go, "Whoa, what?" Mate, he was just a good human being, and I think playing that, a lot of the innocence of the game was lost. I think the world missed a generational talent. But he had a love of the land, love of his cows.
Yeah.
And he had a love just to bat.
Yeah. That, just to sometimes when you become a professional athlete, you don't lose the love, but love isn't the first thing on your mind.
Yeah.
But then there are certain players, and they're very few and far between, that whether they're getting paid a squazillion or they're playing for the country or they're literally playing local league, they're the exact same. Yeah. Exact same. It kind of sounds like him, similar to that. That's special. And in regards to I'm assuming that group of blokes will never be able to fully move past it, but how did you deal with it at the time?
Yeah, the Test match that we played, Darren Lehman, it was we didn't actually know whether players could take the field. We had the Test match had been put off for a while. You had the funeral, and then when we went back to try to play the Test match, like when you look at about preparation to get ready, Darren had training set up, but we didn't know whether we could play. You had guys that dealt with the situation different to others. Some walked into the nets and just walked out. They couldn't bring themselves to play bat v ball.
Yeah, wow.
And I remember even the morning in the game, Darren said, "If you're right to go, go. But if you're not, don't go." And when the anthem was playing and everyone's there, and there was guys that couldn't hold it together, and to be able to go out to bat like the guys close to him, Smith and Warner, Michael Clark, and a couple of those guys got hundreds in that. But incredible. Yeah, it was interesting. Like, you just didn't know whether the game was going to have to be called off that day.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, it was something you wouldn't want anyone to go through.
Oh man, and just this uncharted territory. Like you don't really have a book to guide you through it, and everyone's so different. One bloke needs this sort of kind of way to get past it. Another bloke, just tough. Mate. So moving, your first ever Ashes speaking of the Ashes, are going to be happening in summer.
Yeah.
2009 contributed to 121 runs. What was that like, your first Ashes?
Mate, that was interesting because I had to sit and watch a lot of batting, which was great. I think Kadich got 100, Ponting, Marcus North. And I remember Ponting wanted a night watchman. And I think, I can't sit. No, I can't have a night watchman. And he sent Siddle to get padded up. And Sid's had one pad on, half his thigh pad, and a wicket fell. And there's a decision to be made. And I'm thinking, no, fuck it. And I just ran down the steps.
Oh, really?
And first ball, Flintoff bumped me. And I went to pull it, got high on my stickers and just fell short a mid-wicket. And when I got through that night, nothing needed to be said because I didn't get out, but enough was said. And next day I was lucky enough to get 100. But I remember playing a lot of my cricket with Matthew Haddin. And he said, you'll do some extraordinary things playing for Australia. He said, but you'll be remembered on how you perform in Ashes campaigns.
Yeah.
And that always was at the front of my mind. He said that the energy is different. The theatre of an Ashes campaign is so different. Every test match means the same.
Yeah.
But whether you're in Australia or England, and this was my first experience, we played a couple of tour games, and the energy around the whole country. If you went to grab a coffee or a beer or dinner, everyone knew. An Ashes campaign, everyone in the pub, the coffee shop had an opinion on what England were going to do to you.
Yeah.
And Haydos was right. You are judged differently on whether you win an Ashes series, on how you play. If you lose an Ashes series, there's always a big review.
Yeah.
We've seen the women's game just nail 16-0, I think the final score was, but there will be a review. And every time you lose an Ashes or win it, one team has parties, the other one has meetings, and that's how you judge. So to get to a good start in your first Ashes campaign, but you talk about the 100, that's not what I remember of that. It's the draw.
Yeah, okay.
It's the draw. It hurts us. It probably costs us the series.
Yeah.
Is we just couldn't get Monty Panesar and Jimmy Anderson out for, I think it was 10, 12 overs. Monty Panesar can't spell bat. and we just could not get them out, and the series was drawn.
Yeah, wow. Far out. Well, the next part is brought to you by Menulog. Australians love a bounce back. It's brought to you by Menulog, who is currently on the greatest comeback of all time with a better browsing experience, enhanced courier features like tracking and courier chat, and very recently, automatic refunds for missing items. We just got our feed from the cafe down the road, South Dowling Sandwiches, with some of the best sandwiches in literally all of Australia. Took 15 minutes. How good. Boom. But let's talk about one of the great bounce backs. So Ashes, your first two series, 2009 England and then 2010-11. Unfortunately, Australia lost those series. You personally scored 100 in both those series. But what was it like for you personally? Like, it's every kid's Australian dream to play in the Ashes, but you lost the first two. So it's like, I'm sure it's like a mixture of feelings of you almost feel selfish because you're happy with your performance, but at the same time you didn't win. What was it like for you?
Hated it.
There you go.
I hated every minute of it.
Yeah.
Yes, I love the theatre, their campaign, but we couldn't get our hands on that urn. And I remember when we finally got it back in 2014, it was as good as feeling as I've ever had in cricket.
Wow.
And going back to what Haydos says, you spend so much time and effort into the theatre of that campaign. And I didn't want to end my career of not having an Ashes. I did not want to be that player.
Wow. Could you imagine?
Well, no, I can't. I can't imagine. I don't even want to think about it.
So 2014 rolls around. Walk us through that series. Walk us through the 2013 series. Vice captaincy. You broke the record for most dismissals by a wicket-keeper with 29. Again, just like it's a storm of emotions, I'm assuming. Yeah,
well, that series started in a unique way, actually. Our coach, Mickey Arthur, got sacked. Darren Lehman came in. But from my point of view, that was I was just coming back. I just had 2 years out of the game. Best part of 2 years when my daughter got cancer. So that was my first time back. And I remember coming back and making a decision to come back to play cricket to get yourself right. Is I came back to play state cricket, and I didn't know whether I was mentally strong enough to come back. And you pride yourself on being a mentally strong player, but I didn't know whether I had it in me to come back and leave home. So I remember starting back a couple of months before playing Shield cricket, and the first game was in Perth, and I remember playing that game. I couldn't get it out of my head what was going on at home, and I remember coming back home, sitting down with my wife and saying, I don't know if I can do this. And then we had a chat about, you know what, everything's under control at home, things are stable, and what I found is don't hold anything back from me. Don't think I'm day 2 of a game. Tell me what's happening if something goes wrong at home. Tell me. So once we had that conversation properly, I was able to get back and play.
Yeah.
And it was interesting.
Is that because you knew that you would be told if something, so you kind of almost could be like,
well, I could deal with it if I knew. What I couldn't deal with was the unknown. And you know, you might be, if their voice changes, things, and you go, no,
something's there.
Don't. And that's what changed it for me.
Yeah, okay.
And I think when I came back, I got myself into a great headspace. It was interesting coming back though, because I don't know, you had this athlete monitor system, and how much sleep did you get? And I thought, fuck, I'm not fucking feeling that anymore. I remember the first time I went back to play, I got 100 in a Shield game. I had the night at the hospital. And I didn't want to be judged on what people thought I was going through. I said, only judge me is when I made the decision to come back. I'm coming back. Here I'm at training. Judge me on my performance. I haven't missed anything.
Yeah.
Don't assume you know what's going on.
Yeah, okay.
And Cricket Australia were good with that. New South Wales they weren't as good.
Okay.
But I politely said, I've been at every training.
Yeah.
You're going to have to judge me. Don't assume you know what's going on.
Okay.
Anyway, I get to that Ashes play. First test is a cracker. We lose by 12 runs. Ashton Agar comes in 11. He gets 99. Phil Hughes whacks it. Then the second innings, we needed 120, I reckon, with the last couple of wickets. And myself and James Pattinson, I think we eventually got it down to 12 or 8 runs. We lost in the last ball. But what people don't know is I walked out on that last day, and Mia had got a sepsis reaction with the immune system.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether she was going to be there when I got off. And so I went out to bat, played my role, did everything I had to do, just fell short. Come off, things are okay, but happened to walk across that line. And what saved me is we had the conversation is, yes, you can hop on a flight when things calm down, you can get if something happens, but we've got things under control. And that was just part and parcel of dealing with a kid with cancer. Infections come, and anyway, they got it under control, and she was fine. The tour went on.
Did you have to block it? Like, how do you separate that? Because I'm sure a lot of people listening going, all I'd be thinking about was that. It would just be going over and over.
We had a close family, and if something had to happen, well, you go home, and if something had happened again and I had to step away, I would have retired and never come back. Okay. But things were under control at home. You were going to get these sort of events because the enormity of what was going on and the uncertainty of what cancer brings. But I was able to get out, and once you got across that line, he's okay, no, now I've got this job to do. I can't control anything at home. Yeah. And it wasn't easy to get to that spot. But once you had the trust at home and then, mind you, I fucking fell short by 8 runs. I was the last one out for 70. James Anderson, I remember getting an inside edge, and they're all appealing. And I'm thinking, not out. And I could hear Alistair Cook behind me talking, saying, we're going to refer it, and Pry's going to refer it. And I'm thinking, if they refer it, I'm gone. And they referred it, and Jimmy Anderson ran past, and he said, you effing hit that. I said, I know I did. I can't lie to you. It's gone upstairs. And we lost the test.
Right. I guess the 2 years that you did take off, did you ever feel like you would get like, I'm just going to assume here, but did you feel selfish in wanting to play cricket again at all at times? Or no, you just kind of worked through it mentally and got yourself to that space?
No, I didn't think I'd play again.
Yeah, okay.
When I walked away from the game, I was content. I was happy what it was happening at home. And I was no different to any other family. Whether you're running a podcast, you're a carpenter, you're a cook, you're at uni. Once that happened, okay, all my attention was to that. And if I'm honest, I did not think about cricket once for 10 months.
Yeah, wow.
I think the longest stint we had hospital was about 8 months. Between 6 and 8 months. It's all a bit blurry now, but I didn't think about it. Then there comes a time, no matter what you do, someone has to go back to work.
Yeah.
And it just happened that my job had a profile. But I was no different to any other family in the oncology ward, whatever job they do, you've got to make a decision to go back to work. You've got other kids at home. You've got to keep as normal as you possibly can. So there's so many moving parts. And when things stabilise, then you started to have conversations. Well, hang on a minute. I've got to go back to work.
Yeah.
What is that going to look like? Do I go back to cricket? And I remember saying I can go back, but there's two things to look at. One, if I still had that shit in me, that I could do everything I possibly could to be the best. If I didn't have that, I wasn't going to go.
Yeah.
And whether also I still had the drive to do that with what was going on at home. So there's a lot of decisions you have to make. And in the end, I was lucky enough to come back, things stabilised, played the Ashes at home. We won the 2015 World Cup, and that was it.
And so when did your daughter kind of move past it?
I think the one thing happens when you've got a kid with cancer. The first thing they say to you, you're no longer a normal family. And what they mean by that is your normal's just different.
Yeah.
She's going good now. She's in year 9. Things for us have worked out okay. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah, for sure. Far out. Yeah, I mean, it's just the strength to be able to handle and juggle all that, and you just the family side of things as well. It's just incredible, mate. So, but you do win the Ashes, and walk us through that feeling, because I mean, that is truly the pinnacle of every young cricketer's.
That was a pinnacle.
Yeah,
it was, and it was a unique series as well. The series was about Jono. Mate, I've never seen, and he had a few demons coming back from Ashes 2008-9. The Barmy Army went up after him, and it was brutal.
Yeah.
You're in that quicksand sometimes in Ashes. It's hard to get out.
Yeah.
But, mate, he came back, and he was there to hurt people.
Yeah, wow.
He was there to intimidate. And I remember Kevin Peterson, and he was one of the modern-day greats. He said blokes are in the change room not wanting to come out. And that's what we tried to create with him. We tried to make it as uncomfortable as we possibly could for the opposition. We had a group of guys that had played a lot of cricket together, whether Johnson, Clark, Siddle, Ryan Harris, Chris Rogers, and then we had your young guns, Warner and Smith, and that coming through. But the unique thing about that series is the same 11 played every test match.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and to win 5-0 at home, mate, the energy around the country, everywhere you went.
Against England, it doesn't get better.
Doesn't get any better. and I remember it looked like we're going to win the 5-0 day 4 at Sydney. And Ryan Harris got on a heater, and he knocked England over, and we won day 3 of the McGrath Day. And I tell you what, the next week was as good as it ever been.
What was the biggest celebration, the 3-0 or the 5-0, do you think?
I think that the 3-0 was big.
Yeah.
We were at Burwood Casino. Shane Warne had actually organised a party for us off-site there. And that was big. But you still had that as an athlete. Yeah, mate, we're going to have a couple of days to enjoy this. But we were scarred a bit from not having won one. And we seen an opening, and you don't get it a lot in your career where, mate, we've got the opportunity here to break an era.
Yeah.
And we went after it.
5-0.
Then when 5-0 hit, that was new level.
Far out. And, you already kind of spoken a little bit of it, like Mitch Johnson. Is there any stories from that series that, maybe not necessarily like in a negative, like the public don't know, but like just behind the scenes with Johnson in that series, like, because truly one of the iconic series.
Mate. The one thing we had a real clear game plan, and Michael Clark and Lehman and the leadership come up is we're going to bowl him in short spells and we're going to use him to intimidate. We just played a series in India, and Buff Lehman didn't coach. Steve Rickson was coaching at the time, and Jono had just come back from injury. Anyway, he was bowling a different level, and we got in contact with Buff and said, mate, you got to get Jono home. Mate, get him home, get him right for this Ashes. He's bowling different to what we've ever seen.
Wow.
So they took him off, got him home, and got him ready for that series. And I remember, I think Jonathan Trott retired. God bless him. Graham Swan retired halfway through that series. And I remember Swanee coming out to bat. He's took centre, and he's turned around and everyone's behind the wicket. And I reckon he nicked it. And before we'd caught, he said, I don't need this. And he was out of here. We knew before the series, in the nets, it was like brutal.
Okay.
It was, mate, this is different. This is a Jono we want.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing from that series is grown men walking out with fear in their eyes going, how do I deal with this?
Yeah.
And we didn't take our foot off the throat at all.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what a 5-0.
Yeah.
Incredible. And yourself, you broke the record, 493 runs, broke the record for the most runs in a series by an Australian wicketkeeper, mate.
Yeah, I think for
Not
me...
a bad bounce back.
Yeah, that was good. It was... it's the first time I've been back playing in Australia since Mia. And I just felt comfortable with everything in my game, everything in life. And it was one of those periods where I can tell you I did this better, but I prepared well, as you always do. I was just clear. I was just clear in everything I did. And you have those moments, different moments in your career where it just happens, where you're not thinking about much. You've done all the work, and that's how it was. Everything was content. Everything was stable. And I was just enjoying every contest.
It's when you ask like an athlete like yourself about those moments, it's like slipstream or zone. It's like a hard kind of way to explain it, but everything is done with intent to a degree. Like there's no, I feel like when you're out of form a bit, it's that second of second guessing yourself that it's almost subconsciously happening. Yeah. Whereas like when you are doing something that just seems to work, you're never second guessing yourself. Everything is just not instinct, but it is whatever the first choice you're choosing to make, you just make it.
Yeah. I think the other thing with that, I think when you're in that period, things slow down for you.
Yeah.
Where the game's going on, but you just seem like you have more time. And you go back and watch the greats of our sport, whether it be the Pontins and the Steve Smith and that now, they just have more time than all of us. And you spoke before in your sport with rugby league, where if you're talking about a Smith or Joey or something, they just have more time than everyone else. And I think that was the period for me where you just felt in total control. But I know we won the World Cup after that, but I tell you what, it was hard to go past 5-0 Ashes.
Oh, mate. Well, speaking of the World Cup, 2015, you win the World Cup. How loud was the MCG crowd in the final against New Zealand?
Well, fast bowlers don't often get a lot of credit for using their brains. But I tell you what, when we got Brendan McCullum, I think it was third ball, we felt the game was over. The country felt the game was over. And I tell you what, the crowd, they partied exactly like that.
Wow.
But it was interesting leading up to that because McCullum had dominated the World Cup over in New Zealand on smaller grounds, and he got hold of us at Eden Park in one of the round games, and Mitchell Starc and Craig McDermott, the bowling group, said, "You know what? Let's just bowl Yorkers. This is what he's doing." They looked at all the footage, and analytics now plays a big role in sport, but sometimes you use it, other times you push it aside. But I said he's just charging once every couple of balls in the first 6 overs.
Yeah.
Let's just keep the stumps in play the whole time. And he bowled 3 Yorkers in a row, 2 just missed and 1. But the moment he bowled him, the whole crowd, everyone, I think there was 95,000, and Starkey took off, we took off. We actually felt like then that we'd won the World Cup. We thought Brendan had some really good players in the team. And they could hurt us, but Brendan could take the game away from us. And once we had him, that put a lot of pressure then on that middle order to play a different style of game because he'd been so dominant on the smaller grounds in New Zealand through the tournament. But, yeah, it was a great way. And we were ready for that. New Zealand got the better of us in a game over at Eden Park, the only game we lost in the tournament. And, yeah, it was good.
What a moment. And then obviously the end of your Test career, walk us through how that all kind of came about.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was and ahhing whether to continue. And then, I remember Pat Howard said, "Can you get to one last Ashes campaign?" I said, I think I can. So everything was great at home. Family were right to travel. So I went to England, played that first Test. Then Mia got a bleed. Just something out of the ordinary because how aggressive your treatment was. And I pulled out of the Lord's Test and I said then, I'm done. You couldn't do it to the team. Mate, she had some tests over there. We got her home. She had a procedure to fix the what she had going on. And I said, I'm out. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And that was it. Couldn't be more content. Yeah. I got everything out of my career I possibly could. Yep. And that was it. And walked off into the sunset, had a great time, wouldn't change a thing. Yeah, okay. But yeah, it was once that happened again, I said, no, that's it. Okay. Yeah. It's I mean, when you think back when you were like, let's say 29 years old and a half. Yeah. To imagine that you would have ended your career with all of the, your 60 plus tests or whatever. And I mean, amazing. Mate, you've played with some great captains. Who stands out to you? The best leader of men I've ever had was Ricky Ponting. Okay. He's just got this unique ability, one, to change the energy of a group. If you watch the intensity that he trains at, whether it was his first test to 150, he's there to get better every day. But he also had an ability to know how to talk to you, know how to talk to me, the first gamer, the 150 gamer, and bring everyone together. And that, to me, he was the best leader of men I've ever played with. Michael Clark was tactically a really good thinker of the game. He thought about the game differently. He didn't like the game just to plateau on. He was always thinking of ways to win. So, and I had a little bit of Steve Waugh at New South Wales, and he just made you feel like you could do anything. Yeah, wow. And I remember Stephen really early in the game, we're playing Jason Gillespie, and he was one of the best fast bowlers we ever had. It was at North Sydney. And he said to me, Hads, go put your pads on. We want to hit Gillespie off his length. I'm thinking, oh, shit. Yeah, Tugger, mate, I'll do it. Whatever you say. I'm thinking, I can't do that. Yeah. And he said, he hits the same spot. I said, I think we can slog sweep him and throw him off his game. Yeah. I said, yeah, no worries. And I'm putting my pads on thinking, I can't do this. And anyway, got him on, sitting up there, and Tug goes, you know what, I'll do it. I said, mate, I'm ready, rock solid, ready to go. I'm thinking, I'm not ready. And he just went out, went bang, 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 6, done. And I just went, well, yep, that was good. And he said, you were ready for that? I'm thinking, yeah, I was ready. I wasn't ready. But he had a unique ability to, mate, how important is what you're playing for on your head.
Yeah, okay.
And what I liked about when he came back to New South Wales, and we're seeing the standard he had in the game with Australia, what the baggy green meant to him. You've seen him wear it at Wimbledon and how what he's looked like at the end. But he showed us that same passion when he came back to New South Wales, and that was a great education from really early in our career.
I've got to ask this as well. Being a decent sledger yourself, who's the person that you've been sledged by where you've just gone, mate, that's either too far or just like, that's some great sledging? You've had some good battles with England, with Matt Pryor and guys like that. I've never played in a game where it's gone too far. But like when you first asked that, then I was thinking England, South Africa. But nothing compared to when you played state cricket against the mates you played against. Yeah, okay.
When you played state cricket against guys like Haddin, Simo, mate, that was as confrontational as you'd ever get. And they're your great mates. They're the guys you grew up playing with. You go into battle. Victoria, you had guys like Darren Berry that were, mate, they were ruthless to young cricketers. Ruthless, and they used to give it everything under the sun. But we enjoyed our own back. But the biggest ones you got was from playing state cricket.
Yeah, wow.
It's still New South Wales, Queensland.
Yeah, love to hear that. Mate, favourite moment in your whole career?
Actually, when you ask that, I'm thinking Ashes, World Cup. But I tell you what, the most, and I don't miss playing. I've exercised everything. I had a great career. National anthem.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
The only time now is when the national anthem's playing, because you're standing there with your 11 teammates, you can see your staff, you're arm in arm, and I don't think there's a prouder time for an athlete or an Australian is that moment right there. And once it's done, you don't need words where you're just looking at each other and go, you're ready? Yep. And that, I reckon that is the most proudest moment. Yeah, you get your baggy green and they're but that moment there.
Yeah, because just the history of that, that anthem and the flag, and so much has gone into making it what it is, and you get to represent that, the whole country.
Well, the other thing is when you do it is everyone, like we've been, like the World Cup, there was 90,000 people. And once that's done, and it's probably so much the anthem, but the feeling afterwards in your guts, like going, oh, you know what, we're on. It's on here.
Oh man, mate, your podcast, Willow Talk.
Yep.
What's the program looking like? What's the kind of direction you want to head in this year for it?
Yeah, it's an exciting year. I think for Willow Talk, we've got a few things that we want to experiment with, but I think the one thing it's an Ashes year.
Yeah.
We're going to have a bit of fun with it.
Yep.
We're going to have some entertaining guests. And I think we're going to give a pretty honest insight to where we think the game's going. But I think off the back of what's about to happen, I'll be listening in. We're going to have some fun with it. As I said to you before, whether it's sledging or gamesmanship, we might see a bit of that on there with a few of the English. But
okay, a few headlines maybe
to where it goes. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So, mate, tune into Willow Talk, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And as a guy getting into cricket, just so fascinating to hear, just the history over the last 20 years or so of Australian cricket. So, thanks for that, mate. I appreciate it,
mate. Thanks for having me. It was good fun.
Thank you.